All right, welcome everybody to this week's episode of Ronin's Den. We have an awesome guest with us, Emily Greymoore, to talk about their game, The Cunning Folk. Uh, Dragon,
Hi.
you want to lead us on in with all the wonderful prep work you've done?
Beautiful. Yeah. Hi, Emily. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are thrilled to have you here. Why
Pleasure
don't
to
you
be here.
start? Why don't you start with telling everybody who you are and where they can find you?
Sure. So my name is Emily Greymoore. You can find me on TikTok mostly under the same name, spelled the English way. Hopefully, it's written somewhere that you can see, so I don't
Right
have to
on the
try to spell
bottom.
that for you. I'm there. I do mostly sort of like TTRPG and like D&D content. I'm also a voice actor on the Unbalanced Encounters podcast, which we've just been nominated for 2 awards at LA Web Fest. I'm very excited about that. And so when I'm not in this cupboard recording that, I'm out writing TTRPGs, and this is my first sort of like real foray into that we'll be talking about today. So yeah, I'm very excited.
And the game that you are currently working on that you've created is called the Cunning Folk.
Yes.
We've had a chance to kind of look that over, and why don't you quickly tell us a little bit about the game?
Oh goodness. So the game itself is a fairly rules light sort of zine-sized TTRPG. So it's a little bit more structure than your one-page TTRPGs, but not anywhere near as in-depth and as much of a novel as some of your full sort of like crunchy RPGs. Um, it's basically imagine the other side of the fairy tale. So where Rumpelstiltskin was promised the firstborn, you get to play Rumpelstiltskin, taking your revenge on the humans who basically did you out of the contract that they'd signed. It could be some humans maybe felled a tree that was really important to you. Maybe one of them just looked at you a bit funny and you decide to get revenge and curse their entire bloodline. It's hilarious. You can make it as dark as you want, as light-hearted as you want. Yeah, it's great fun, and you get to play all kinds of different little critters and gremlins. Um, it's been very, very good listening to all of the kind of creatures everyone has come up with. Yeah, it's very, very fun. I've enjoyed it a lot. Does that help?
So, you mentioned that it's kind of the other side of the fairy tale.
Yeah.
What inspired you to make a game on that? Was there like a show you were watching and you just kind of thought about it? Where did the inspiration come from?
That's a really good question. I think I've always had a fascination with fairy stories since I was young, but also, but more in that sort of like the listen, I'm a monster lover. I can't deny it. I just like the little critters. I like the little gremlins, and I've always had a bit of a soft spot for them, especially like watching Labyrinth, for example. Like great movie when I was growing up, absolutely loved it, and just seeing the other side of like in the Goblin Kingdom and like getting all of Brian Froud's work and just the nuances of like what that world really is and what we don't necessarily see. And they're not all just like gossamer winged fairies. They're actually quite dark and nefarious. And it just led me down a path of folklore and all of that wonderful old stories of the courts of Fae and just how it's just there are so many games where you interact with them or maybe hunt them down or have to like track them down and like exterminate them. I just what about on the other side of that? I mean, people me personally want to play one of those things. I don't want to be out there in the woods hunting for the dark thing. I want to be the dark thing that's in the woods. So it's just like, yeah, I like the underdog. What can I say?
So you mentioned that you can kind of go in a dark route or kind of a
Hmm.
whimsical. You've had a lot of people play testing it. What
Yeah.
seems to be the more common? Because looking at some of the abilities that are in this game, you could go really dark, and I feel like there's more of a tendency to want to do that than to be the whimsical.
It's funny because it's been a little bit more on the lighthearted end, which was really interesting for me. A lot of people have been playing it with their kids. So the young
Oh.
kids, obviously, like, bless them, they're innocent. They may go a little bit like grisly sometimes. You know how like the kind of goosebumps kind of like kids like something a bit gross. Um, but generally it's just fairly lighthearted and like silly mischief. But then I did have one playtest group that went like real dark. So it's I love that you can do either, and it kind of just triggers that actually I could use this in a really silly way, or I can really create some nightmares with this too. So,
Well,
yeah, mostly whimsical
now
though. So
Well, now that you say that, I'm thinking, and like, this would be a really good game to play with your kids. Like, it'd
yeah.
be a great segue for kids into TTRPGs. And until you said that, I didn't think of that really, really at all.
It's weird. The way when I was making it, I had no idea either. Honestly, I was making it for adults who really want to like delve into that creepy fairy tale sort of like vibe. And then when a lot of my playtesters is like, yeah, my kids loved it, or yeah, I played it with a group of kids, and I was like, what? How did I not think of this? This is perfect for kids. Oh my God. So yeah, that was a really happy thing that I didn't even consider. And yeah, it's just like they've run with
That,
it. It's been
that,
great.
that could be a good marketing strategy too. Like, hey, this is a perfect game for kids. Because I know a lot of people, especially on TikTok, are always on there. Hey, what's a good TTRPG for kids? And now I could be
Yeah.
like, hey, go check out the Cunning Folk. This is definitely one for kids.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so looking through the rule set, what would you say is the core mechanic of the game? I know Duality and I kind of like to look at the mechanics of games, and it seems kind of interesting. So could you tell us a little bit more about it?
Oh, it's pretty original. But I'd say the one thing that really kind of like its core mechanic and the one thing that stands out the most about it is the fact that you can level up and down fluidly throughout play. Um, and the fact that low level and high level both have pros and cons is what makes it really interesting. And so having like a variety of levels in your party makes a really, really fun and interesting and like nuanced game, which I really, really enjoy. That I think is probably the core mechanic that I really like the most of it, and it's like its main thing. Yeah.
So you say that you can level up and also level down, which I think is very interesting. Where did that idea, that philosophy, that design come from? Like what inspired that?
Um. Oh wow. A lot of things. Um. I just thought it would be funny. I thought it would just be a really fun way of like, haha, I could be big and powerful, and now I'm just a teeny weeny little thing. But I wanted to make sure that both of those things could be equally fun and were equally useful in play. Um, so having the idea of you can grow more powerful, but you're more likely to be seen by humans is kind of like that scale. So you need to be able to do what you're doing without being seen as much as possible. So you can move a mountain when you're like high level, but people are going to notice a mountain moving, right? So you're going to shrink back down. But when you're small, you can maybe whisper in the walls. You can maybe like throw a book across the room. Maybe you can swap out some keys. You can do some really like nefarious things without being seen and cause like the most like Spanish novella soap opera drama, and just like sit back and watch it unfold, and it's just glorious. So, um, yeah, it can be really political at like a small level. Like you can start a war down here, and then you can like destroy a village up here. Like yeah, it's very fun.
So so basically, from what you've said, I looked through it, but I didn't really catch everything.
Sure.
So being seen is how you level down then. Like,
Yes.
so you don't want the humans to notice you.
Yeah. So you're trying to so with like I mean, the Fae in our world, generally like the little folk or like the cunning folk or, however they're called, wherever across the world, generally they're not really seen. And if they are, people think you're crazy. It's like elves don't exist. What are you talking about? Um, so being able to kind of really manipulate humans into their own demise whilst sort of not being seen doing so just like allows them to be wonderful puppeteers and like spectators of this wonderful justice that they're dishing out. I mean, you could easily just like squash someone, kill someone, but that's too easy. You want to like ruin their lives. You want to make sure their children's children suffer for what they've done to you. And and that's just like an amazing way of doing it. Yeah. Let them do it to themselves, basically.
So to that effect, I saw that you have 5 archetypes
Yes.
in the game. Where did you come up with the idea for those particular archetypes?
So for those archetypes, I really did look at the standout sort of like tropes in a lot of the stories. So like we've got the elemental, the crone, the beast. Oh my god, I'm testing myself. The light and the trickster. So these all represent sort of various things throughout kind of fairy tales. So the trickster is a little bit more leprechaun, maybe like the demon at the crossroads. A lot of like that charm sort of like fae that you may come across. The crone is just like the little old woman that's in the woods that may have like a book of spells or like gives you a love potion to like help you do whatever. The elementals are like the druids, the elves, the ones that kind of really can manipulate nature. The trolls as well, things that are made out of nature, which is really interesting. Um, the light, they were based off of sort of Will o' the Wisp and things like that. So it's like things that can lure children away, like the Pied Piper and stuff like that. Like those kind of like really sort of tricksy ones. And the beast is like the black shuck or sort of like the wendigo or like something that's really sort of like bestial in terrorize people's nightmares sort of creature. So I wanted to like encapsulate a theme that could be skinned in any kind of like cultural way that people may want. I didn't want it to just be like a Western British Isles fairy type game. I want it to be like someone could see something and go, that reminds me of an African folklore thing, right? I want it to be really, it could be transferable to like any kind of culture or any kind of like background. So that's what I wanted to really go for. Keep it really loose.
Okay. The trickster was my favorite out of the 5. Which one would you say was the most fun for you to write, though?
Oh, it's like choosing between my children. The most interesting one, I think the light genuinely was the most interesting because it was very hard to separate and give it its own silhouette versus the trickster because there's a little bit of overlap in some of the things they do. So really kind of making it its own nuanced thing. Leaning into it's doing it for fun because it can versus like I'm signing a contract with you, like you owe me one. Made it really, really interesting to really kind of create the light in that really malevolent way. Yeah.
Okay. And last one I have on the archetypes. So I see that they all have their individual abilities that they can do, and there is some overlap between some of them. But it looks like it's set up almost for the party to have a good mix of the different archetypes. Which one is that the case? And have you noticed people gravitating toward certain mixes of characters or specific archetypes when they're reporting their playtests back?
I don't know exactly what archetypes people are playing in some of the feedback I'm getting. A lot of it's anonymous, but what I have heard is people are trying not to tread on toes, so people will sort of spread out across the archetypes, even though you can have, a couple of 2 tricksters, for example, in one party, because you're going to have a disparity of levels. You're not always going to be the same level at the same time. One of you may be able to do something the other one can't, and vice versa. So even if you do have overlap in people playing whatever archetypes, you should have enough fluidity and interesting things because your level's going to be changing all the time. But there isn't necessarily, I didn't design it with particular sort of groupings in mind. I wanted to keep it so each one could do something different to the others, and but also they could all work very well together. Yeah, no matter what mixture people choose. So even if you've got a party of 2 versus a party of 4, you should have a really good balance.
So I have a quick question about the levels. So you have levels 1 through 5. If you are a level 5, like let's just say level 5 light, can you use the previous level's abilities, or are you just only at level 5? Okay.
Yeah. So as you level, you unlock everything that's underneath, which is, from what I've heard from some of the playtesting, I have to make a little bit more clear in the writing, so that's something that's going to be changed in editing, just to make sure people understand that as you climb, you get access to everything underneath you as well. So yeah, you can do all those things beneath you. Yeah.
Okay. So going back to like the system itself, we're talking like the dice mechanic is that you roll a d6. 4 to 6 is a success. 1 to 3 is not a success.
Yeah, 50-50 chance basically.
50-50 chance. Yet there are some tasks that can't always be succeeded, which is a way to I'm losing my train of thought here.
You're right.
Sorry. So if you succeed, you level up, correct? And then if you don't succeed, or if you over succeed, you level down.
So if you fail, so if you just don't, so for example, if the GM would say, okay, to do what you want to do is going to be 3 successes. If you're level 4, you've got a dice pool of 4 dice. So you need to roll at least 3 4 to 6s to be able to do this. So if you roll 3 exactly, you succeed, great, you get to level up. If you roll less than 3, you fail. You don't level down, but you get a point of luck that you can use the next time. The luck just allows you to basically add or remove a dice from your dice pool, so you can use that whenever you want to do that. And then if you over succeed, so you rolled all 4, managed to get successes, you would do the thing, you basically like manage to achieve what you wanted to achieve, but you then explain how you were seen doing so and then level back down. So it's like you did it so well, people saw you do it. It's like there was like an explosion of magic, or you crashed through a door when you were doing it or something. And then you kind of like have to move back down. Yeah.
And with the 5 abilities that you have when you're level 5, are those the only things that they can do? Or would you encourage players to think outside of the box and maybe try something else if it fit within the theme and didn't like go above their level in theme? Or is it like, are you wanting them to stick to those or kind of be creative?
So the magical spells, let's say, that all of these archetypes can do are basically given to you at a much reduced success rate. So because they're naturally like good at these kind of magics, you get them for a lot cheaper than other people would. So for example, the light can lure people, if I think it's like 2 successes, I think it's like a really low success chance of doing it. But if a crone wanted to do the same thing, so it's like I want to try and like get that person's attention and bring them over, the GM could say that would take 4 successes because that's not something that's naturally, you can't naturally do that. So the magic that each of these archetypes get is something that is like natural to them and they can do really, really easily. But all of the mischief, so there's like a whole list of examples you can do for mischief, is things that you can try and do anyway. Even if you don't have the magical skill to do it, you can fucking try. So it's like there isn't a magical spell that makes a tornado happen, but if someone was level 5 and was like, hey, I want to try and like get a tornado to whip through this town, the GM would be like, okay, that's gonna be like however many successes they deem is like relevant for that. And you can try, and they may well succeed. It's just going to be a little bit harder for them to do because they're not naturally good at it. So the spells are just like a cheat code, basically, of you get this thing for like really easy. Whereas if you want to try something else, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. Basically, that's it. But you should absolutely try and do anything that your heart desires. Please. As much mischief as you can cause, the better. For sure.
Beautiful. So let's talk about the portion of the zine that is the story components.
Sure.
Looking at it, it is the slights, the offender, cares, satisfaction, and then you go into the making of a mortal. That seems like, from what you've written, that is something that the group collaborates on. Or am I misinterpreting that? It seems like you all get together, you find what the slight was, and then go from there. But talk about that.
Yes. So basically, in your session 0 or at the beginning of the session, however you want to do it, as a group, the GM or the storyteller basically needs to kind of figure out who pissed you off, right? What did someone do to you to upset you so much? And so each of the folk would say, this guy, came and like stole all the flowers out of my like magical garden or something. Or some girl over there said she'd leave bread out for me and didn't, or whatever it was. Right. And a lot of the time, especially for sort of like the first game, it's try and kind of get all of the folk on board to hate on one person. Usually the best thing to do is like, so the offender is the same for all of the folk, so they can band together to then take down this person. So it's like the person who stole the flowers was the same girl who said she'd leave the bread out or whatever, right? So you then put it together. So the offender is the person who basically did the thing to upset everybody. You can have multiple offenders, don't get me wrong, but that will lead to a much more complex story. So I'd say like once you've played a few games, you can try that, but try and stick to like one BBEG to start with. Otherwise you'll be all over the place, for sure.
That little girl over there didn't give me bread like she told me.
Yeah, exactly. She said I made her bakery a success, and this bitch didn't leave me bread.
That last corn dog.
That's it. 100%. That's it. She's got no toes. I've taken all her toes.
Yeah. But yeah. I just am.
That's what I'm how dumb this game can be.
So I'm just thinking of like all the different things, like, hey, she didn't even see me, but she gave me a dirty look. She looked in my direction. It was wrong. Like, she should have been smiling instead of not smiling. Now I want her dead. Like, what?
She didn't brush her hair on Sunday. Fucking rude, man. Yeah, it can be as dumb as you want it to be, legit. Because, like, Fae are, like, fickle, weird little creatures who can get offended by the dumbest stuff. And so that's what makes it so funny. It's just like, I can take the ultimate revenge. I will crash this wedding. I will make her fall in love with a warthog. I will, whatever it is, just to make her look dumb because she made me look dumb.
Make her fall in love with a warthog. That is the line from the show right now. That is the one.
Yeah, that'll be the title. Fall in love with a warthog. Interview with Emily Greymoore.
Yep.
The Cunning Folk.
It's truly the best revenge.
So, another interesting question that I had brought up, based on looking at this, from what I've read and what I've looked at it, it seems like it's more built towards one-shots. Was that your intent, or do you think that it could be easy to make a campaign out of this? To me, it seems like I would struggle to like have 5 or 6 sessions in a row with this. It would be something I'd throw between a bigger game.
Yes.
But
it was definitely invented with the idea of being quite episodic. So it could be like you could play a game and then the same group of people could come back together in like a few months' time and just like someone else has gone and pissed us off. Let's get the A-team back together. You know what I mean? But it was definitely designed to be pretty short. So maybe like a one shot, maybe split over two. If it's like you decide to do a bit of a more convoluted route to your sweet revenge. That being said, if you did want to include multiple offenders and have like this weird conspiracy, like if the storyteller really wanted to go, actually, this goes fucking deep, and then these people figure out this like really long con plot. I mean, you absolutely can. There's nothing stopping you, but it's definitely designed for sort of just like one person. You're getting revenge on that one person. Maybe the session lasts about 3 to 4 hours. Yeah, one shot size definitely was my idea anyway. But...
Okay.
That's what I was getting out of it too.
I also, for some reason, right now, I just have this idea in my head with this game of having like these fey creatures, and like you're running a game of something else that's kind of highly political, and then every now and then you just throw this in, and it's the little cunning folk screwing with the people from your big game, and when you come back, they have to react to all this stuff like, man, my castle burnt down.
So
what? How did that, like, my castle burnt down. Like,
why did the princess run off with Lancelot? What the fuck? Yeah, it would be so. Yeah, that would be such a good idea to just like.
I feel like there's so many applications for this game as I'm talking to you that it could just. And to me, that screams really good design, honestly.
Thank you.
I'm thinking of some kit bashing here myself. Like, let's say we're playing a game of The Crypt is Opened, right? And we're kind of at a lull in the story. We could take a break, jump over to Cunning Folk, and that would segue nicely into some extra sessions later on down the line.
That would be so good. That'd be so good. Especially if you've got like, okay, we've got a couple of people who can't make it this session. Fuck it, let's play the Cunning Folk, and then they have to come back the next session to see all of the fuckery that's happened since they've been gone. It's like, yeah, your character now, some stuff happened to your character. You upset some people last session.
But man.
Oh man, that'd be so funny.
But I also really enjoy like the way you wrote some of the stuff in here, like the phases of play being once upon a time, the slight, it's time for mischief, a dish best served cold, and then they all lived happily ever after. So
question mark.
Like, well, the Cunning Folk lived happily.
Yeah,
ever
they
after.
did. Damn right.
Those humans, fuck those humans.
I just one of my favorite bits about that bit is like the wrapping up at the end, sort of like tying the bow on it. The storyteller basically letting you know what the fallout is of your actions. So it's like whether it's just like what the next sort of day looks like because of it, or maybe what the next few generations look like because of what you've done. And I just think that's fantastic. So you really get an eye view into like absolutely everything, the long tail of what you've done, and it's just so satisfying. Yes. He lived in poverty for the rest of his life. Great. So good.
Yep.
I'm honestly not this malicious in real life. I swear to God.
Are you sure?
That's why I have to live it out in fantasy and roleplay.
I mean, I don't know. Coming up with something like this, you have to have a little bit of a twisted mind. Especially some of them, like, what is it, the beast one? I believe the beast, you completely devour a person within reaching distance. Is their level 5 ability. You just eat them completely. Like,
big bad wolf stuff, isn't it? Yeah. I just imagine No Face from Spirited Away. You know, when he gets real big and just starts like eating everybody. That's what I imagined from that. Yeah.
Okay. So you pulled inspiration from like everywhere for this.
Yeah, I really wanted to pull from like not just the sort of European centric kind of like fairy tales. I really wanted to, so that everyone could look at this and go, oh my God, I have an idea that is so out of whack, but is like works so well. You know what I mean? yeah, I really wanted to make it good for everyone.
I am actually very anxious to play this. I want to play it now after talking to you and giving all these ideas. It definitely, but I believe we are at the 30-minute mark.
So
Ooh,
And
that went quick.
it did.
I'm kind of out of questions. I've asked everything I wanted to ask. So duality,
Well, I
go
mean,
ahead.
we always ask creators who come on and do interviews with us when they create their own game if they'd like to come back and run a one shot in the future at some point in time. So we would like to extend that invitation out to you. We know you're a busy person, but the invitation is there.
Thank you. Definitely I would love to. May not be anytime soon, but I definitely would love to come and do that. That would be really good.
And as I asked prior to the game or prior to this, we do run monthly one shots at the last Saturday of every month. We are trying to do that all year to try new games, highlight
Nice.
creators like you, your game, and we would love to throw it into the rotation if you are okay with that.
I'd love that. That'd be great. Like I said, especially because I'm going to be so busy for a little while. If you guys can play it as well, that'd be amazing. That'd be so great.
Beautiful.
Sounds good. Well,
I have a question for the two of you.
Yeah.
If there is time.
oh, absolutely.
There's plenty
Which
of
of
time.
which of the archetypes would you choose to play?
Trickster.
Ooh.
Trickster was a good one.
I really think that if I had to pick one, I think I'd pick the Beast. I feel
Beast is
like
popular.
the first time I read it, I was thinking like, imagine a Bigfoot. Like
Yeah.
the Beast is just Bigfoot. Like what is Bigfoot if not a fey creature, right? Like people
agree.
see him and then he disappears. It just makes sense. So I think if I were gonna play as a character, I would probably play the Beast. I feel like this is a game I would have to be running because I don't know many people who would actually run this. So
Fair enough.
yeah.
Fair enough.
So or storyteller would be me, but if I got to play, I would definitely pick the Beast.
Amazing.
So-
Well, when I run it for you, you can be a beast, so that's fun.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
So thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time out of
you.
your very busy schedule to sit with us. You have been an absolute joy to talk to. We are very excited for your game, and we hope
Thank
that
you.
it is a a smashing success. Do you have final question? I promise. Do you have any timetable for when you think this might actually be released?
Yes. So the deadline is for Gen Con, so I will be at Gen Con and I hope to have the finished product there with me. So basically I'm talking to an editor now and basically I just need to give them the money, which hopefully will be in about a month. And they'll get it all edited and it'll be good to go. So yeah, so in the next kind of like 2 months maybe, but definitely before August. So yeah.
I lied. I have one more question based off that.
That's fine. Go for it.
Is this going to be like an online only thing? Do you plan to have it printed? What is your goal there?
It's definitely going to be digitally accessible. It's probably going to be on itch and drive through things like that. But I would like to have a hard copy of it. I'm looking at artists to do sort of like a really Hans Christian Andersen style sort of like cover for it, so I can do sort of like looks like a proper little fairy book, which would be really cool. So we'll see, but I would like to have a printed copy for sure. That'd be great.
Be awesome if it had like a pop-up.
Could you
A little pop-up book
Sorry.
with little pull things. Yeah, that'd be...
get me excited? That'd be so good. All right, Kickstarter, here we come for a pop-up book.
I'd back it.
I'd back
If
it.
you do, I'll back it. Ronin
All right,
said
all
will
right.
be the first
Done.
people to back it.
Right?
But
Oh man, that'd be so
any-
good.
Anyway, as I said, thank you so much, Duality.
you.
Check us out.
Yep. This has been another episode of Rona's Den. Thank you very much for stopping by, Emily. It was a pleasure. And we'll catch everybody again next week where we do our breakdown of the Savage Rifts game. Have a good day, everybody.